Welcome to episode 6 of What's the Point of Loyalty, the not so regular vlogcast mini series about loyalty, the customer kind. I'm Adam Posner, your loyalty whisperer, and I am discussing and debating that very question: what is loyalty? With industry insiders, outsiders, makers, shakers, and cake bakers, or anyone who might just have a point of view on loyalty, the customer kind, and all of its different names, shapes, and forms. The human I'm chatting with today has real intelligence, not the artificial kind. And I would absolutely be delighted to welcome my good friend and industry specialist, Nick Hinsley. So, Nick, instead of a set bio, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then answer a few pointed questions. And from there, we could go anywhere and or nowhere. So tell us a little bit about yourself and give us a little bit of maybe a tidbit about who you are that you've never shared in public, if you're up for it.
Well, first of all, Adam, this is such a treat. I've been really looking forward to catching up. You're a close and dear friend, and we've been that way for a number of years now. So it's excellent to get on this session. So thank you. Quick intro about myself. I'm going to start on the personal side. I'm the lucky husband of Fiona, proud father of Angus and Isabella, 11 and 8. On the professional side, I love everything to do with the customer. I started on the floor as a sales associate at Gazman. I worked at Gazman Menswear for 4 years, and then went to Gant, again, another menswear. And I worked there for a year and a half. And that's actually when I was introduced to loyalty programs, or would you like to be on our mailing list, as it was.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say how many years ago it was, but it was a number. And then from there, basically, my background is now split into two. One is I worked in above the line media for nearly 15 years across press, radio, and out of home, and then transitioned into the tech space and worked at an organization called Lexa, which is a customer data platform business. I was there for nearly 6 years, and then fortuitously found myself in retail media, which interestingly, unknowingly, is actually quite a combination of old school above the line media, if you like, and first party data, and the application, taking my CDP experience. So I've been in the true retail media landscape for now nearly 4 years, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's a very quick bio, if you like.
Yeah, it seems like you're an industry veteran in an industry, then we'll talk about it more, that it's just absolutely blossomed or exploded, whichever word you want to choose. And 4 years feels like dog years. It could be 28 years times by 7 in terms of the speed of the industry that I've seen from the outside, but we'll certainly talk a bit more about it. But Nick, before I let you get off the hook, what is something you've never shared with anyone before in a public environment like this with the 1 million plus subscribers that I have?
And I'm sitting on a couch because I watched Billy's session, and I felt like this is your life and part therapy. We're recording on a Friday afternoon, so I'm sitting down on the couch. But something that I don't think I've ever shared publicly is I get very nervous, anxious when I'm in public speaking.
Really?
So
Would never have guessed. I've seen you speak. You seem very relaxed on the outside.
yeah. So I mean, it's something that I've worked hard on, but yeah, for whatever reason, I never feel entirely comfortable talking in a large public setting. So
Wow.
it's something that I continue to work on, and hopefully one day I'll feel very comfortable up on stage or in a public forum.
Yeah, it's an interesting anxiety, that public speaking thing. And it's well known that after spiders, it's most probably the second most, and fear of heights. I don't know where they fit. I sort of made that up, but public speaking is. I don't know why we're so concerned about what other people think, and I think that's where it comes from.
It's very true.
I know this is not a psychology session, but it is born out of what will people think of me if I make a mistake or whatever it is. It's very much about that, and you know that I do speak in front of 1 and 10 thousands, or not 10,000 in my dreams. But there is that sort of nervous anxiety. But when you know your topic, which you do, and it's what you're talking about, that's where the confidence starts to come in. And I've
Very
seen
true.
you in front of groups, and you're very relaxed and confident. So I understand that. Although I have to tell the audience something about you that I know that you haven't shared, and this is on the spot. But you're an incredible swimmer, and we have something in common there. I've swum with you in Bondi at the icebergs, and I've seen you get in the lane and smash out. With these fast dudes, you are an incredible swimmer. Do you want to tell everybody about that, or should we keep that a secret?
No, of course I'm comfortable to talk about it, and it's nice that you still think I'm a great swimmer, because it definitely doesn't feel that way. But yeah, in another lifetime, I'll probably be regarded as a professional swimmer.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Again, it was the days when I was working the floors, in Gasman and Gant, so it's a very
Yeah.
long time ago. But it probably provided the foundation and the platforms for the way I go about a lot of what I do, and that was really instilled in me when I think it was about 16, with a particular coach I had at the time, that brought a lot of. I still use it all the time. Everyone I've worked with, they probably hear me say it a lot, but strategy, structure, and process, and that's what
Love
he
that.
brought to our squad at the time. And I think that's something that I've carried on now for 30 years,
It's amazing. Yeah, that's such a
which is
beautiful
crazy.
insight. Strategy, structure, process. I totally understand that in business and in life, especially in professional sport. And I'm certainly not a professional, but I'm a dedicated swimmer, and strategy, structure, and process. And I love the way that you use that. And it's sort of in your DNA from all those 4 a.m. mornings and all those races, strategy, structure, process. Beautiful insight. I love that. Thank you for letting me share that with the world, even if I enjoyed that little insight. Let's get on to loyalty, which is why we're here. Um, so, Nick, what's the point of loyalty?
I think the point, well, actually, I think there's two. Um, so one is obviously business driven, to fundamentally make money. But I think the critical side of that, and if they don't provide that, is an experience provided to the customer, to build a meaningful relationship.
An experience to provide the kind of build a meaningful relationship. Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful little statement of 7 or 8 words. I love that, and relationship seems to come up a lot when I ask questions of brands and businesses. What is loyalty? And you know that I'm all about loyalty. It's not a program. What is it? And how I define it across behavior, belief, and belonging. But the word relationship is certainly an extension of that. And I wonder these days though if people actually have relationships with businesses and brands. Do you really think they exist, or is it very transactional?
It's a good question. I probably think it depends on
Yeah.
the category.
Hmm.
Uh, I think transactional based, categories, like a grocer, is hard to build a connection. But I do think supermarket chains and grocers do their best to build that.
Mm.
Uh, but then I think if you talk to a fashion brand,
Mm.
or the like, particularly those that are trying to build a direct to customer relationship, they need to build that relationship and the connection, or else it's very easy to go somewhere else that's offering a very similar
Mm.
product
Mm.
at potentially a cheaper,
Mm.
um, price point. So yeah, I think it really depends on the category.
Yeah, you're spot on. Context and category, when asking that question is the overarching, I guess, frame to answer that question as you go deeper. I'm going to digress a little into my favorite question. It's back to being a bit personal. So, what do you reckon? Are you an insider, an outsider, a maker, a shaker, or a cake baker?
Um, I think I am a maker.
Yeah.
It's it's in my DNA. I think again, it probably stems from my swimming background in again that coach
Mm,
came brought the structure of building or making a program to suit the individual. And so I'm a simple man. I love spreadsheets, and I make a lot in a spreadsheet,
ah,
whether that be on the personal side or on
ah,
the business side. And I love, I'm very passionate about building, making, and enabling teams is one side of, uh, professional side of it that I really enjoy. And so I think, um, I'm probably a maker and a builder rather than I'm definitely not a cake maker. That's for sure. Not a
ah.
baker.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good to hear because yeah, if I always ask myself when I'm chatting to people on this little series, what's my view of what they are before, and in my mind it was spot. I actually think you are a maker. I think you're a maker of relationships, and I always go back to how you brought a small community together on your retail media walkathons, as I called them. That was such an innovative idea to bring the reality of what retail media in store, as in in real life, and how you brought people together and how you corralled us and got insights. I always go back to that as something that made a big impact on me. And you are a maker of that, and I've always seen the way you build relationships. So that's my feedback to your maker. Let's get on to a little bit more of the other side of loyalty programs, and that's the frustration side. You've been in and out and around loyalty programs because of the various roles you've had, and you've commented and you've involved and you're a member. What's your biggest frustration with loyalty programs?
Probably my biggest frustration is it's seen that everybody needs to have one. So then the byproduct of that is there's a lot of cookie cutter
Mm,
loyalty programs without truly understanding the why
hmm
and working through then what is a meaningful relationship and the
mm,
experience associated with that. That's probably my biggest frustration is having a loyalty program for the sake of having a loyalty program, and then on the other side of that is actually not understanding what is the return of
mm,
actually having a loyalty program. Again, if you come back to the two sides of it, having a loyalty program, one is like what's the business
hmm
impact, and then what is the customer relationship and impact as well. So I think that's probably my greatest frustration is having a loyalty program for the sake of having one.
Similar frustrations, but this is not an interview of me. Um, great insight, and thank you for sharing that. So let's get down to your real experience now, and where you're at. I see you as an incredible relationship builder in a category called retail media. Not only a relationship builder, you become an industry specialist. You've learned so much, you share so much. So how do you explain what retail media is to your 11-year-old, your 8-year-old? What, they say, Dad, what do you do? What do you tell them?
So I was lucky enough to see this question before
Yeah.
this session, and I think it's a fascinating time for the younger generation in the way that they consume media today. And so, like it or hate it, they all watch YouTube.
hmm
and it is a source of content, but it's also a source of advertising.
Hmm.
And whether the advertising is on a pre-roll, a YouTube pre-roll, or it's part of the content creator and they're promoting either
Mm.
their own products or a product associated
Mm.
in sponsoring their show, that my son, who's 11, he almost knows the space better than most, and that generation
Yeah.
as well. So uh, it was a conversation that I had with him probably 2 months ago, in that I asked him, or I think he actually asked, so what is retail media? What do you actually do? And we used YouTube as the
Ah.
genesis, and then said, okay, now when you get on Woolworths or Coles, because they often, when we're doing the online shopping, they get involved in
Ah.
a couple of items that they'd like.
Yeah.
And then I talked to him about, the digital shelf
Yeah.
and a product placement there.
Ah, love
And,
it.
and instantly he understands it, because again, he knows the premise from YouTube and the advertising there. So, and that's obviously on the digital side. So it's not as hard to explain what I do now, because I think of what they're exposed to, as opposed to TVCs or television commercials for us years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating, this world that we live in today.
So just a little bit deeper, if I'm your 11-year-old son, I'll ask you another question. So what actually do you do, Dad?
I help retailers better understand the opportunity of being able to provide a media platform to the brands that they work with, to better engage the end customer.
Okay. So would he understand media platform?
He would understand a media platform
Beautiful.
because I think of YouTube,
Yeah. And
them
you
being a
use
media
that
platform.
as your example.
Exactly.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just drilling down to a little bit more
No,
simplicity
no.
for your 11-year-old, but he gets it based on the context you gave. So I love that. Amazing. So now, just quickly, where are you now working? I mean, I know that you're at a group called Vantage, but tell me quickly a little bit about them, and putting you on the spot, like why do they exist?
So yes, I've been with Vantage for 2 months. They are an orchestration retail media platform.
Yeah.
They're headquartered out of Toronto, Canada. They've been in existence for 12 years, and they work with organizations like the Home Depot, as an example,
Wow.
out of both the US and Canada. We've got a global team of just under 130, and we're continuing to grow that. What we do in 10 words or less, I think, was the brief.
Yeah.
And again, it took me a while to think of this, but I think at our core, we empower brands to deliver connected customer experiences.
Power brands to deliver connected customer experiences. No, nice. That's definitely 10 words or less. Love that. And are you the only one here in Australia sort of representing them, or are you growing a team? What's your mission while you're sitting here in local Melbourne, Australia?
Yes, so I was the first employee outside of North America,
Yeah.
and certainly the intent is to position as a leading offering here in Australia, APAC,
Mm.
and build a team accordingly as well.
And so it's quite cluttered from what I can tell. And only thanks to your education, and also I've featured at a couple of the events and heard and seen how many different the whole ecosystem, and how many different players there are across so many parts of the retail media, I guess, category. How do you differentiate your offering in this ecosystem of retail media?
I think it comes back to that connected experiences
Mhm.
for customers. So we are what we label as an orchestration platform.
Mm-hmm.
There's three core channels for retail media: on-site,
Mm-hmm.
so websites;
Mm-hmm.
off-site,
Mm-hmm.
mostly the walled gardens of a Meta, a Google, a Pinterest, and coming Reddit, and then the in-store environment as well. And so being able to understand uh, all of those channels and the ability to connect the customer journey across those channels is really important and doesn't really exist in the market.
Mm.
So we we provide that ability both for a retailer to offer or build as a managed service, so the retailer builds on behalf of the brand,
Mm.
but also the ability for a brand to log into the retailer or the business's network,
Mm.
build their own campaign, um, which is called self-serve, and have the retailer or the organization provide the final approval of that campaign, and then it goes live.
Mm.
And so that true ability is very rare in the market, and particularly at the scale that we do provide it for the likes of the Home Depot.
Mm. So I noticed in your definition, I heard in your three pillars, on-site, off-site, and one more,
In store.
and in-store. Okay. And your off-site was more the social channels. If I'm playing it back, in-store is actually literally in the stores, and on-site is their website. Right, I get it. So what I heard was missing is potentially the next question, which is, so where do loyalty programs fit into the retail media ecosystem?
So I think I know where you're alluding to.
I'm just asking. I never
But
heard the word loyalty programs or owned asset. Maybe I'm just assuming things, or tell me, you tell me.
so I think there's two sides to loyalty programs per se. One is the data that
Hmm.
is captured and is part of it. So customer, product, transaction,
Hmm.
and website and email. So that's the data, and that's incredibly valuable from a loyalty standpoint. So that's one is that utilization of first party data,
Hmm.
and then second is the communication channels that come from a loyalty program, such as app, CRM, email, etc. as well. I don't think retail media is truly tapping into those as channels just yet, uh, for a couple of reasons. One, the scalability of it, but also
Oh,
two,
sorry, to jump in there. They're not capitalizing because of they can't be scalable. I don't understand why they're not.
the particularly on email, the infrastructure to support it currently doesn't
Okay,
truly exist, so that you can easily achieve it at scale.
right.
And then two, I think the nature of which loyalty exists is quite not intimate, but um, you need to be very careful and protective of what channels and particularly loyalty that you look to monetize, I think. And, what's the sacrificial
Mm.
lamb as part of that offering as well? That's my opinion. So I think, yeah, you need to be very careful with how you use it.
So is it still on the outer? So I'm trying to understand because in the three pillars that you provided, our loyalty program is an owned asset. So the offsite assets aren't owned; they're borrowed. They're someone else's. All those social channels, yeah. The in-store is
Correct.
owned. It's absolutely their bricks and mortar. Their place, their media, and their website is owned, right? So where and when do you think loyalty programs will be absolutely integrated into a whole retail media ecosystem? If I understood that they're not quite there because of scalability challenges, where and when do you think they'll actually start to fit in?
So, I mean, there are some examples on
Yeah.
the owned assets, as you indicate, so on-site and in-store, and that can be in conjunction with certain promotions and associated with the larger loyalty programs
Yep.
and connecting brands with the customer in that environment.
Yeah.
And from memory, I think Woolworths did a really good job of connecting it across
Yeah.
multiple channels. And I
Mm.
think you and I had this conversation. It might have actually been about a year ago. And there was I remember there was banners on their website. You clicked on the banner, you went through to a promotional page, you got to choose which brand you wanted to engage with. Then it came up with a digital shelf accordingly, and then it had a connected piece in in-store digital screens in relation to that promotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And the program, the loyalty program offering.
Correct.
Yeah, the
Yes.
points
Yes.
offering. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. Yeah, there have been some examples that you and I've shared. I still see from the outside though that all the conversations of that I see retailers who are engaging in retail media and what I'm watching and reading is loyalty programs are certainly, and the asset of the data that they have are brought into that conversation. So they're part of that wheelhouse, they're part of that ecosystem. I'm not quite sure if they're actually an afterthought or an actual, the beginning thought or the afterthought. Where do you, maybe you help me answer that question. Do you think when you're going in and talking to brands about retail media and your solution, where and when do you bring up the question, oh, do you have a loyalty program?
I think it's right at the start because I
Okay.
think the loyalty program is a value proposition, particularly ideally loyalty. Again, it depends on the category. Should drive recency, frequency, and monetary elements to the retailer, and then that also think indicates a level of health and opportunity that exists across the network. So I think foundationally, loyalty programs are a massive value proposition to a network.
Mm.
And so therefore it needs to be a conversation and a consideration and how they're going to utilize that right from the very start.
Love that. I didn't counsel you on that answer. You came up without me bribing you to say that. So thank you very much for sharing that great insight. I think that's good to hear that you're having those conversations. So how would you counsel brands operating retail media ecosystems to not over leverage their loyalty program asset? The data. Basically creating customer fatigue or member fatigue or erosion and of that, because once they become an asset, everybody wants to jump on them and smash out some emails. How do you counsel brands on that within your retail media conversations?
Yeah, I think coming back to what I was saying earlier, I think they already do take it into consideration, particularly email as a channel, as well as SMS and app. Again, because I think app and SMS, and to some extent email, are a more intimate channel to
Mm,
connect with
mm,
the human.
mhm,
So I think they take that into consideration. I think where we're starting to go with the utilization of customer data is again uh, putting screens in or having assets or utilization of assets for the sake of having them and the ability to monetize them. And so there are some store environments that you go into globally around the world that almost feel like Times Square. There are so many screens
wow.
and assets in the store because of the ability to monetize them. And again, I think that comes back to providing the right customer experience and not cannibalizing that just because you can make a dollar. And so that comes back to definitely a loyalty piece, but also just the utilization of customer data to help inform what
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, I love that analogy around the Times Square feeling. I can almost picture it in terms of those assets, and I think you answered the question around like, don't over. overcapitalize on a loyalty program asset. It's, just going to be managed and nurtured and looked after. And, and I think we all know that. However, now that retail media has come along, there's another reason, in my view, that a loyalty program has become so powerful and popular.
Yes.
All of a sudden, I always say that loyalty programs used to be, the poor cousin sitting on a Monday morning smashing out some emails. And now it's the rich uncle at the boardroom. And with those brands, and with those brands who actually have a retail media ecosystem, I'm hoping, and I'm sure there's conversations at the boardroom table about the loyalty program asset that they have. Let's move to I've been watching, reading retail media. You said you've been in it 4 years. I feel like it's, as I said, dog years, a lot of experience. It's changing. So, but is it a short-term sort of shiny new versus a long-term view of value? So like, what's your feeling out there in terms of the space?
Um, so I think the concept of retail media has been around for a very long time.
Right.
I think we need to start there. Um, in what shape and form
Mhm.
varies drastically across the various different retailers and organizations. We've spoken a lot about retail, but there are other
Yeah.
categories that are running very similar programs, and they're in the commerce media space. They have a great customer relationship, and incredible data asset as well. And partners that are interested in connecting with their customers.
Mm.
Um, but I think where we are now is the ability to connect a customer journey, and whether it starts on the couch and ends in store at the checkout, or it starts on the couch while you're watching TV and you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, and then you go to the website and then you transact in the store. I think that's the big differential now. And I mean, retailers have been doing that
Yeah.
forever and a day with
Yeah.
their B2C relationship. But what we are now offering is the brands that typically don't have a D2C relationship can actually build that through the retailer in a more meaningful way.
Mm.
So I think that's where we are today. Where we go in the future, I think, is incredibly exciting,
Yeah.
but also a huge unknown. So much of the conversation that we're having around AI now, today, and everyone's LinkedIn feed is just 9 out of 10 posts is about AI. But if you really think about it, everything that we're talking about now, we weren't talking about 6 or 7 months ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the rapid evolution of this space is coming so quickly.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that we know is that the store environment is going to be there. In what shape or format is going to change, but it's going to be there the whole time. What happens in the digital environment is going to be what changes, I think, significantly, particularly as now you can purchase through OpenAI or
Yeah. Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You can take a photo of your pantry and say, what am I missing on the shopping list this week? Build me the shopping list. That's the thing that I think is the unknown. People have concerns about, but I think also we should be running at that and adopting, like, be excited by it rather than scared of it. So I can't give you the crystal ball because I think no one knows. Um, but I think it's really exciting, the rapid evolution of this
Yeah.
space.
So coming back to the question, do you think it's a short-term shiny, or is there a long-term view of value with retail media?
I think there's a long-term view
Yeah.
of value for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It'll continue to evolve. It's existed in businesses,
Yeah.
whether it's been merchandising on trade and some media, um,
Yeah.
for a very long time, and it'll just continue to evolve.
Yeah, I feel like as a layman watching the space, you're right. I mean, I remember doing supply funding models for pharmacy groups years ago. In fact, 2011. I did one. So, and it wasn't called retail media. It was just called a supply funding model. And
Yeah.
then along came this term called retail media. And again, might have been around a long time, but it's just suddenly become, I almost put it like this. A few years ago, I always saw these different assets as different raincoats. So people were putting different raincoats. Now, retail media is the umbrella. It's like got this overarching image with all these pillars, but it's held together and orchestrated to, for that. Whereas before had different silos of naming and or functions within a business. And so now it's all brought together in this whole ecosystem, as you know it, is called retail media. Um, so you sort of answered some of my questions around, which I had ready to ask you about the future in that little background that you gave a minute ago. Um, what do you think will be obsolete in a few years with what we're doing now with those brands engaging in retail media strategies?
I'm not sure about obsolete, but I think the way that we discover,
Hmm.
I think the way that we make choices and also how we transact
Mm.
is going to change dramatically, particularly in the digital space. Do do retailers have websites?
Mm.
What does a website actually, if they still exist, what do they actually look like?
That's a really interesting one. Do retail, is a website as they were? Because, yeah, I mean, almost like, yeah, that's really interesting. I would love to understand. So the websites as they exist now for those retailers are used as an e-commerce, for as a platform to go and buy stuff, yeah, through it.
Yes.
It's a website by definition. So are you suggesting potentially, and it's quite provocative of you to suggest that maybe there won't be such a thing as a website, or if it's got another name, or
Yeah, so it still might be a destination to
uh-huh,
engage and educate and provide an experience, but is that where the transaction happens?
uh-huh. Yeah, that's really
Um,
interesting.
so, and again, all of these thoughts are only started to take place in the last 2 to 3 months
I
with the
know.
rapid. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's a consideration. Um, I think like a unified cart again across multiple different retailers in ChatGPT and OpenAI is is a possibility. Is
Wow.
like build me a shopping list, and if Woolies is out of stock in 5 of my products, does it then go and top up the cart with from another retailer with products in stock, and so then I get everything delivered to me, or do I go and pick it up somewhere else?
Wow. Just that little scenario it blows my mind. I can't even like frame. That's an amazing insight. And I guess um, even that little use case that you explained right there and now, which is beginning to happen, even though I'm not doing it and you're watching it and you're on the tipping edge of it, just framing that story seems to be almost like utopian, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's tomorrow. And for whom? And for which audiences?
Oh,
Maybe for your son and your kids, but
yeah,
and maybe not for any other generational differences. It might be for a whole new generation of consumers coming through.
yeah. I mean, I definitely know of some retailers here in Australia that are considering what does a website mean and look and feel like in 3 years' time.
That's a beautiful insight from this little chat. I think, there's the headline. What do we really need a website? I could almost put that out there. Uh, Nick Hinsley says,
No,
I
don't
won't.
don't do that.
Well, come on, we've got to create a conversation, but that's a really, really interesting insight, Nick. Thank you for sharing that. So, if you had unlimited budget or Vantage had unlimited budget, the organization you work with, what would you build or fix in the infrastructure today, in the retail media infrastructure today?
Again, I think it's AI.
Uh-huh.
Um, so. and lots of the market are talking about this, is what takes a human many minutes, many hours, uh, internally and within our platform. How do we streamline that? How do we better help make decisions that are based on data to inform a better
Yep.
experience for the customer? So I think it all comes down to providing better experiences both for the user but also for the end
Yeah.
customer as well.
So this is a question maybe that, and for those watching, yeah, Nick got a few in advance, but some I just come up with at the moment, so he may not be ready for this one. Um, so I get asked for the naysayers or the non-believers of loyalty programs, why should we have one, Adam? Convince me kind of questions. Um, to which my answer is, if I need to convince you, don't do one. Um,
Or
no, I
proof
don't
points
really. Huh?
like or proof points like
Yeah.
of all transactions for Kroger, 95% of them are attached to a loyalty transaction, or the softer one where my wife gets excited by the beauty box every
Yeah.
time it comes from Mecca.
I could
Um,
use those great examples, absolutely. If you ask me, convince me. Yeah, no, I'm sort of being half cynical and saying, if you don't believe, don't do one, which is an interesting story because I once had a conversation with the CEO and it was questioning me about the value of loyalty programs. And then in the end, he said, well, it seems like it's a cost of doing business. And I actually, the blood drained from my face. And I just said to him, with all due respect, and this was for me to get a consulting gig, with all due respect, don't bother. And I knew when I said that I wouldn't get the gig, and I didn't. Because I said to him, if you see it as a cost, like everything, opening your doors, putting things on your shelf, paying your people, everything's a cost. But there's a value exchange here. There's a value back. So the mindset is what I'm challenging.
mm.
It's you got to have the mindset of the value generation. Yes, everything there's an investment. Anyway, that's a side story. So my question for you, Nick, is what do you say to the naysayers? Convince me why I should get involved in retail media.
uh, I'd start with the cost of doing business today, and
What do you mean by the
then
cost? I don't understand. Why should I?
s-
It's going to cost me
so
more, is it?
no. So as an example, lots of retailers charge for delivery.
Yep.
Now, on the flip side is if you didn't have to charge because you were making revenue from a media network, you'd probably provide a very good experience and a competitive one to your customers.
Mhm.
Um, so there's plenty of examples of that have a cost to the business at the moment that's being passed on to the customer. And so the positive on a network side is you can create a diversified revenue stream, which then in turn can be passed on to great experiences for the customer. That's one example. Um, but I also think retail media exists already in businesses, whether that's in a catalog or otherwise. But why wouldn't you provide your brands a better opportunity to engage with customers because they certainly want to.
Yeah.
Because often they, again, as I mentioned before, they don't have a direct to customer relationship.
Mm,
Like all the FMCG brands,
mm,
lots of them don't have D2C relationships. Lots of the consumer electronic brands
mm,
don't have a D2C relationship. And if they do, it's probably for consumer electronics, it's through their warranty programs.
mm.
So the retailer is offering the ability for brands to build a meaningful connection with the end customer
You gave me two very
through
good
their
reasons. You
network.
convinced me on two. One is a diversified revenue stream, or another revenue stream, a better relationship with my brands, or sorry, FMCG brands that I stock on the shelves, and one more reason before I sign and go ahead.
Uh, I mean, at the end of the day, the margin profile on a media network is very attractive compared to their typical operations.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so that's more
that,
revenue, and I'd suggest maybe in time a better customer experience, as you sort of alluded to and said, the
well,
revenue
that,
to
yeah.
overcome costs for customer in that delivery example. That was a lovely example. All right, Nick, I'm going to finish up. I think we're going to have another coffee after a swim one day and talk more retail media. But my last question for you is, so if you do have any sleepless nights about the retail media industry, what would the nightmare be about?
Adam Posner asking me more about why aren't loyalty programs more used and
Yeah.
utilized in retail media? No. Uh, how is AI going to disrupt
Yeah,
this space?
yeah. And you really, it's
Yeah,
as simple as that. We don't know what we don't know until we know it,
no.
and then we know it, and then we wonder what's next. So, that's thank you for answering that, and hopefully you don't have too many sleepless nights worrying about the retail media industry. Is there anything that you want to share with this little audience that we have? I've learned so much from you today. I think these conversations are really lovely in a whole range of ways, both personal and professional. Is there anything you want to say, generally about life and or work to the world out there?
I think we've all got an amazing opportunity to connect with people meaningfully that we already know, but also that we don't know. I mean, you and I connected probably 8 years ago now, maybe 10. And that was through this amazing community that we have within retail in Australia. And I think as long as you are genuine in nature, I think there's an amazing opportunity to connect with people that you don't know across LinkedIn or that you might approach at a conference, and you just don't know what sort of connections and relationships you might build on the back of that. So I think more than ever before, we've got an amazing opportunity to do that.
I think that's beautifully said. And in my view, you're the epitome of building relationships and how you build those. So, thanks so much for coming on to our What's the Point
Mate,
of
thank you.
Loyalty little vlogcast series. And for everybody watching, thanks very much, and we'll see you on the other side of the world.
Thanks, Adam.
Cheers.